The Stone Zone, with legendary Republican strategist and political icon and pundit Roger Stone. Stone has served as a senior campaign aide to 3 Republican presidents. He is a New York Times best-selling author and a longtime friend and advisor of President Donald Trump. As an outspoken libertarian, Stone has appeared on thousands of broadcasts, spoken at countless venues, and lectured before the prestigious Oxford Political Union and the Cambridge Union Society. Due to his 4+ decades in the political and cultural arena, Stone has become a pop culture icon. And now, here's your host, Roger Stone.
Good evening and welcome to the Stone Zone with Roger Stone. I am not Roger Stone. I am Mark Vargas, editor-in-chief of Illinois Review, filling in for Roger this evening. Roger will be back tomorrow, but we've got a great show in store for you. We're going to launch today. We're going to hear a little bit from Roger Stone in a few minutes, an interview that he's just recently gave. But before we get to that interview, we're going to talk about how the liberal media and Democrats and the deep state and the uniparty are in total meltdown mode over President Trump's nomination of Kash Patel as the FBI director. And Roger has written a beautiful piece on the Stone Zone. Kash Patel would restore integrity and depoliticize the FBI. President Trump has made it crystal clear throughout his campaign that he wanted to clean up the FBI and the DOJ. He's going to clean up the DOJ with his nomination of Pam Bondi and perhaps Matt Gaetz as a special counsel to go after political corruption. But the nomination of Kash Patel is absolutely brilliant because if you'll remember, and Roger writes about this in his piece, when asked what Kash Patel wanted to do on his first day at the FBI during a recent interview, he stated that he wanted to close the FBI headquarters and reopen it as a deep state museum, and then send all 7,000 FBI agents across the country to do what they're supposed to do, to be cops. Unfortunately, under the deep state and the Obama and Biden-Harris administrations, the FBI has been completely politicized, and all of the resources for that organization and the DOJ have been wasted and used to target a political enemy and one man, and that's Donald Trump. Now, again, you know that you're over the target. You know that President Trump is over the target when you've got Andrew McCabe, and we all remember Andrew McCabe, a corrupt FBI official who lies, who was aligned with Hillary Clinton during the 2015 presidential campaign when Donald Trump was her political opponent. He was fired, and rightly so. But when you've got Andrew McCabe going on CNN, low-rating CNN, and complaining about the Kash Patel appointment, you know you're on target. Let's take a look at this interview.
Andrew, I just want to start first with you and just get your reaction to this news tonight.
Yeah, well, it's a terrible development for the men and women of the FBI and also for the nation that depends on a highly functioning, professional, independent Federal Bureau of Investigation. The fact that Kash Patel is profoundly unqualified for this job is not even like a matter for debate. So I think what we should really be thinking about right now is what does this signal in terms of Donald Trump's intent for the FBI? The installation, or the nomination, I guess we should say at this point, of Kash Patel as FBI director can only possibly be a plan to disrupt, to dismantle, to distract the FBI, and to possibly use it as a tool for the president's political agenda. And, you know, as an organization, we know what that looks like. This country has been there before, right? The pre-Watergate FBI, the J. Edgar Hoover FBI, struck fear in the hearts of Americans across the spectrum of politicians people in entertainment, people in the civil rights community, because the director operated at the direction of presidents to collect political intelligence and to utilize the legal authorities, the investigative authorities of the FBI to terrorize and intimidate Americans. So the question is that where we're going back to with this nomination? I would argue that Kash Patel would be the perfect person for Donald Trump to nominate if that's in fact his intent for the FBI.
In Rogers' op-ed, he writes that the FBI's goals of intimidating Americans, let's not forget this, they intimidated Americans, they prosecuted patriots, they protected the politically connected from justice, and illicitly usurping control from the people. This would certainly be impeded by a FBI director, Kash Patel. And that's why corrupt FBI officials like Andrew McCabe are in total freak out and meltdown mode, because what Kash Patel, who's been a loyal Trump supporter, who is fighting corruption and has said he will continue to fight political corruption, even as FBI director, who has an incredible resume, whether it's working for the Director of National Intelligence, whether it's Chief of Staff to the former Secretary of Defense. Kash has the right credentials to serve as FBI director and to clean house. And again, the fact that the liberal media is in total meltdown mode is yet more proof that Kash Patel is the right person for the job, and that he's going to clean out the FBI on day one. And that challenges the power of the deep state, that challenges the authority of the uniparty, who have lived so comfortably within the halls of the FBI and DOJ, knowing that they've been collaborating with deep state officials who want to target President Trump, who want to target MAGA. Let's not forget, it wasn't the FBI, but it was the DOJ that wanted to call parents who stood up for their children in school board meetings domestic terrorists. Let's not forget that it's the FBI that created these pre-dawn raids, where they not only raided former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich, the sitting governor, with 26 FBI agents, SWAT team hostage negotiators surrounded his home, the sitting governor, to arrest him. It's that same FBI that over 26 agents swarmed the home of Roger Stone, who pointed the barrel of a semi-automatic weapon at his wife's head as she lay sleeping, trying to figure out what the heck was going on. It's that same FBI that not only surrounded Roger Stone's home, a close friend and political ally of Donald Trump, who did nothing wrong, by the way, but it's that same FBI that put amphibious units in the intracoastal waterway behind Roger's home in case he was going to do some sort of James Bond underwater escape. And because their power and authority is now being challenged and will be completely removed, this is why Andrew McCabe and his former colleagues within the FBI are in total panic mode, looking so forward to what Kash Patel is going to do even on day one at the FBI. But before we get to more news and discuss this a little bit more, what's the Roger Stone show without a little bit of Roger Stone? And so, again, we continue to pray for President-elect Trump's safety, a man who has survived not one, but 2 assassination attempts. And the fact that in Butler, Pennsylvania, the bullet missed his head by near centimeters and pierced through the skin of his ear is proof that his time coming up here in the White House is nothing short of divine intervention and divine providence. Donald Trump was put here by God in this position for this particular time to right the ship. And so Roger Stone is giving an interview where he's talking about how we should pray for the safety of President-elect Trump as he prepares to take office, and pray for his safety as he's in office. It's about a 21-minute clip. Let's watch this interview.
Roger Stone back with us to address all of his glory nation. We have Roger Stone with us. Roger, it is great to see you again, my friend.
It is great to be with you, Pastor Dave. What a great time to be alive. If ever I felt that I was born for such time as this, it is in this exact instant. Now, I'm a veteran, as you know, of 13 national presidential campaigns, but this one was very different in every way. Donald Trump has scored the greatest single political comeback in American history. Previously, I would argue that perhaps the holder of that title was one Richard M. Nixon, my first boss in politics, but he was only facing a re-election contest at that point. In this case, Donald Trump was facing a criminalized justice system that was seeking to destroy him financially, keep him off the ballot in all 50 states, send him to jail for crimes they couldn't even actually identify, and all of this going on while he was trying to wage a incredibly successful campaign for re-election or a return election to the White House. So it is a personal testimony, I think, to his resilience, to his persistence, to his courage, to his stamina, and yes, after Butler, Pennsylvania particularly, to his faith.
Yeah.
Now, as you know, I've known the president for 45 years. Very graciously invited my wife and I to watch the Tyson-Paul prize fight with him at Mar-a-Lago with the vice president, Tucker Carlson, my friend Jack Posobiec, just a small group of people. He's always been extraordinarily gracious. He loves my wife. He always tells me how much I've married above myself. He's right about that. But I have to tell you, Pastor Dave, after the events of Butler, Pennsylvania, there was a new serenity about him. There was a new sureness about him. There was a new confidence about him. He knew almost immediately that he'd been spared by the Lord in that instant of a second for a higher purpose. Mm-hmm. And he knew that God would not let him fail as long as he gave 100%. So God delivered. As you know, because I've seen you out there on the Reawaken America tour, where we became friends, I always say, and this surprises some people because, look, I'm a hard-boiled political operative. That's what I do. Politics is what I do. Been through a lot of rough campaigns. When people said to me, what's the most important thing that I can do to make sure President Trump wins? And I would say, pray. Yeah. Pray unceasingly. Pray continuously. Don't stop praying. I've experienced the power of prayer in my own life. People know that I was unjustly targeted by the Mueller investigation. I had to fight in court to get the final unredacted Mueller report in which he admits in black and white there was no Russian collusion on my part, no WikiLeaks collaboration. Said, in fact, he could identify any crime on my part. So they indicted me on this fraudulent process crime of lying to Congress in my voluntary testimony about what? The Russian collusion that didn't happen? It was an absurdity, but in that moment, it was a horrific experience. I admit that to you. I was frustrated. I was angry. I was scared for my wife because I didn't know how she would support herself or where she would live if I were unjustly incarcerated. I was naive enough to think in the beginning, well, I'll get a fair trial and I'll be able to prove that there is no Russian collusion, that I hadn't done anything wrong, but it didn't work out that way. I was railroaded by a vicious partisan judge who made it clear from the very beginning she hated my guts. She hated Donald Trump. She hated and the members of my family. I was subjected to a rigged trial. And the time came when I, kind of hit rock bottom. I was scared. I was frustrated. As I said, I was drinking too much. And it was at that time that I had the opportunity to meet Reverend Franklin Graham very briefly, because we had a common friend, Randy Coggins, a very dynamic young pastor, now in Georgia. Then he lived in North Florida, and we'd had friends. We'd become friends. And Randy kept bothering me, saying, look, you need to turn your life over to the Lord. You need to ask Jesus Christ to come into your life and he'll save you. You just have to be, it has to be real. It has to be sincere. And I, of course, kept ignoring him. I was reading the Bible, but I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't feeling it until I saw Pastor Graham And I laid it all out to him. And I was thinking like a politician, I was saying, well, the only real answer for me that might save my life is executive clemency. And I'm not allowed to speak to the president. President's not allowed to speak to me. The lawyers won't allow it. And he said, no, actually, the answer is something much bigger. You need to confess your sins and get right with God. And the Bible tells us he will deliver you from those who seek to persecute you. And of course, he was absolutely right. So shortly thereafter, there was a revival in an open field in Boca Raton. Franklin Graham is a great orator. He's not his father. His father's one of the greatest men of the 20th century. But Franklin Graham's a very effective apostle for the Lord. And in his oration, he said, I don't care if your problem is alcoholism or drug addiction or money problems or family problems or health problems, pray to God, turn your life over to Christ, and he will lift you up. And in that moment, Dave, I stood up. I was redeemed in the blood of the cross. I confessed my sins, and everything changed. Everything changed in my life. So I've seen these miracles, and I prayed, therefore, for a miracle in this most recent election, because the forces of Satan were arrayed against us. Yep. They control the media. They control the courts. They control these state judicial authorities, and they were bent not on just beating down him. They just want to beat him. They want to destroy him. They want to impoverish him. They want to destroy his reputation. They want him to die in a dank federal jail cell somewhere. And they were ignominiously defeated because good men and women, Republicans, Democrats, independents, people who are non-political, free thinkers, libertarians, Christians, came together and said, no, we're sick of the direction of this country. We're sick of the transgender agenda being shoved down our throats. We're sick of being told that if you believe in life, if you're opposed to whole-scale abortion, you're a domestic terrorist. If you're a Catholic and you choose to go to the Latin Mass, well, you're some kind of criminal. One of the things that I feel strongly about, I'm a Catholic, meaning I was baptized as a Catholic. But when I went to the local Catholic church back before my trial, some woman spit on me. Yeah. She asked me what I was doing there. I said, what do you mean, lady? What am I doing here? This is a church. This is God's house. What do you mean, what am I doing? So now I go to Coral Ridge Presbyterian Church, founded by the great D. James Kennedy, dedicated by the great Billy Graham. We have a dynamic pastor there who really effectively communicates the word of the Lord. And I'm welcome when I go there. People are glad to see me when I go there. People say, God bless you, when I go there. They just had their 50th anniversary this past Sunday. President Trump sent a warm letter to be read to the entire congregation. It was a great, great moment for me and frankly, a celebration for the country.
Well, I think this, what happened to President Trump, what's happened to you, General Flynn, many, it's waking up the religious spirit, too. The religious spirit people are turning off. They want the real, because we're all broken, and we all need the love and mercy of Jesus Christ, because we can't do it on our own. And people see that realness, and that realness is starting to spread throughout the country and the world. We'll be right back with Roger. And we are back with Roger Stone. Roger, I was at a rally with President Trump just after Reawaken, and I was right behind President Trump just before he came on, and Franklin Graham went up to pray over the people, and you could feel that there was a spirit of chaos before Franklin Graham came up there, and he had one of the most powerful prayers I've ever heard. And it was out of his humility. He said, you know what? I'm not going to pray. We're going to have every single person for the next 2 minutes. You pray out loud, and let's get this room of people to pray for this nation and pray for President Trump. And the whole atmosphere changed after that prayer. And that's what we need for such a time as this, prayer.
I wanted to go to that meeting. I think it was in North Carolina.
Yep.
And the truth is, I was too sick to go. I had worked myself into complete exhaustion in the closing days of the election. I was supposed to go that final Sunday to speak for Pastor Jonathan Shuttleworth's church in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, his Revival Today church. He's a great friend of mine, another great apostle for the Lord. And I was just too sick to do it. I was too sick to get to that great faith leaders meeting in North Carolina. Now, I'm going to tell you one thing, to be honest. I thought politicians were a little slippery, but you should deal with pastors sometimes.
Oh, I know.
There's a lot of jockeying going around. But in the end, one of the things we were most successful at was getting evangelical Christians, people who believe in the Lord, to vote. In 2016, when Donald Trump was elected, 78% of evangelical Christians voted. But by 2020, that number had dropped to 63. Now, if we hadn't had the turnout that we had this time, if it remained in that same neighborhood, well, frankly, he might have lost. So, many people should get credit for this. No one person, other than Donald Trump himself, who I think it's amazing after Butler, because prior to the Butler, Pennsylvania event, so many pastors would contact me and say, why doesn't the president talk about his faith more? Why doesn't he talk openly about his faith more? I used to hear this when I worked for President Nixon. Richard Nixon was a very devout man. His mother was a Quaker. His father was a Catholic. But to him, his faith was a very private thing. He didn't want to politicize his faith. He thought it was unseemly to talk about his faith. Interestingly, John Kennedy had no trouble talking about the fact that he was a Catholic. It's a key factor in his election, actually. So, and I think this was true of Trump. He used to go to Norman Vincent Peale's church there on Fifth Avenue in New York. But he thought that faith was a private matter. He didn't want to, be accused of using it for politics. After Butler, I think you saw a real change where he acknowledged for God, in God's eyes, and for the world, that he understood that he'd been spared by the Lord for a specific mission. I was impressed when Robin Bullock contacted me months before the incident in which they tried to kill him in Butler, Pennsylvania. And he said, there's going to be an attempt on the president's life. And I said, Robin, how do you know that? And he says, because the Lord has told me this. That's how. And he says, this is foretold in the book of Samuel 1 and 2, but more precisely in 1, chapters or verses 15 and 16, the story of the two kings. Saul, the illegitimate king, the king whose kingdom was taken from him by God because he disobeyed God, and David, the good king. And Saul tried to kill David, not once, not twice, but 3 times. And he tried to kill him with a javelin, which grazed his ear. Robin, who's a very private guy and not looking for any publicity or any credit, said, you got to get the message to the president. You don't have to tell him it's for me even, because I'm not looking for any FaceTime here, but you've got to get the message to him that his life's in danger and he needs to take precautions. And we decided to do that. I did do that. And I have to say, he was absolutely right. And then afterwards, he said, they will try again. They'll try again. I see it in a field, like an open field. And well, once again, he was right. We know what happened in West Palm Beach. Governor Ron DeSantis said that he was going to conduct his own investigation. He has the authority to do that. I haven't heard a word about that since he said it, unfortunately. They try to convince us in both these cases that the accused killers were acting alone, that nobody knew who they were before this. It's not very logical to me. I wrote a New York Times best-selling book on the Kennedy assassination, The Man Who Killed Kennedy, the case against LBJ, which I laid out the CIA's involvement, organized crime, Big Texas Oil, the military-industrial complex, the Secret Service, the FBI. And what we saw in Butler was very, very similar to that. Stonewalling, a lack of logic. You're going to tell me that the state, local, and federal law enforcement are all on different radio frequencies so they couldn't talk to each other? How logical is that? Yeah. Or that a 20-year-old man who they say is Thomas Matthew Crooks, we have pictures of him, still pictures of him on the phone. Who's he talking to? He's talking to somebody. Oh, they tell us he has no digital footprint. He's never been on the internet. That's not likely at 20 years old. No. And then they tell him, well, Apple will not turn over the contents of his phone. Really? Apple had no trouble giving Robert Mueller the contents of my phone.
Right.
There weren't privacy issues then. Of course, you know what they found in my phone? Nothing whatsoever. That's what they found. So my biggest fear here, Pastor Dave, I say this openly, is The president is committed to real reform, to the return of justice. We are on the cusp of a golden age of peace and prosperity and security and justice. And the president is deeply committed to changing the course of America. He brought this country to heights we had never experienced in his first term, and now he's prepared to make America even greater. And he's on to the antics of the permanent political establishment who think that their job is to dilute or delay or derail his agenda. That is not going to happen. And therefore, my greatest concern, going back to the book of Saul, is that they will try yet again to kill him. I pray every night for his safety, the safety of his family. On my own show, on every show I go on, I do the same thing. I ask people to pray for the protection of our president. Now, I believe he's been anointed for this time and for this task. I believe he already has God's protection. That was demonstrated in Butler. But as you said at the beginning, and we said before the show, Satan doesn't give up quite so easy.
No.
Satan is the king of lies. Lying is what he does. And we already see the lies beginning. That this election was about toxic masculinity or about racism or about being anti-woman. No, it wasn't about any of those things. This was a renewal. This is a second American revolution, a unique opportunity to return to being one nation under God, to fulfill his will. It's on our money. I know the atheists and the globalists, I know they hate that. They hate the fact that our founding fathers were Christians, but it's in all of our founding documents, whether they like it or not. So the biggest fear I have is not the rhinos in the House and the Senate who are going to fight our agenda, or the radical Marxist Democrats who are committed to making sure the president fails. We will overcome all of that with the strength of the Lord. What I really fear is another attempt on his life. I don't know. Some Christian prophets have told me that there might be some assault on his airplane. Look, all I know is prayer works. It worked for me. It worked for my wife. It's worked for my family. It's worked for our nation now in this tremendous victory. It's vitally important that everyone out there in your family, in the His Glory family, pray unceasingly for the protection of Donald J. Trump.
That's so true, because we think the election is won and everything is going to go perfectly fine. As you know, this next 68 days, whatever days till he takes office, is very, very crucial that we keep praying. You know, we're on the verge of potentially World War III today, what's happening in Ukraine and Russia. And you know, the deep state does not want President Trump to take office, because when he does, he's going to hold people accountable. So what are the other things should we be praying specifically for, or the other things that concern you?
Well, look, I think that we should pray for wisdom by the president. The president's got a lot of hard choices to make, because there are a number of very good men and women who will serve. There's also those quislings, those rhinos, those permanent establishment Republicans who try to suddenly reinvent themselves. Oh, Mr. President, I was for you the whole time, when they weren't. So I want the president to be able to identify the Judas goats, because they're still out there. They're still trying to sell themselves. And I think we have to pray that God give him both wisdom and discernment in choosing the right people. So far, so good, as far as I'm concerned. I think he is choosing people who are committed to his agenda. Are they perfect? None of them are perfect. Were all of them my first choice? No, a couple of them were not my first choice. But the people he did pick were my second choice. They're good men and women, and they're committed to his mission. And unlike last time, they know their job is to carry out the Trump agenda, not their agenda, but the America First agenda. It is an exciting new day in America, and we're going to get reform. They kept talking before the elections about revenge. I'm not interested in revenge. I'm not interested in vengeance. Vengeance is reserved for the Lord.
Amen.
The Lord will take vengeance on those who are evil, those who have done wrong. But I am for justice. And those like FBI Director Comey or CIA Director Brennan or Susan Rice, people who acted knowingly in treasonous activity. People who use the full authority of the American government and evidence they knew was fabricated to try to remove a duly elected president and destroy him. Yes, I think that they should face justice. But we have a system for that. We have a grand jury for that. We have a court system for that. I had to go through it, even though I think it was corrupted in my case. But I pray for justice for those people. But I put it in the hands of the Lord.
Amen.
Vengeance is reserved for him. He's told us that very clearly. The hardest thing about being a Christian, Pastor Dave, particularly when you're half Sicilian, is forgive those who have trespassed against us. I've managed to do that. It's hard. It's hard. You have to work at it. You have to pray. But I've done it. I now I pray for my enemies. I pray for those who tried to destroy me. I really do. So we're in a unique time. But we can't stop praying. You're right. The next 64 days are wrought with danger as they try to kill our free speech. And I pray they don't try to kill our leader.
Let's keep President Donald Trump in our thoughts and our prayers. And what's remarkable is no matter how hard the deep state tried to go after Roger Stone, bankrupt him, bury him in lawsuits, nearly try to put him in a COVID-infested prison, that he still has a happy outlook on life. And that is only because of his personal relationship with Jesus Christ. So I encourage all of you not only to continue to keep President Donald Trump in your prayers, but also Roger Stone, who has been so unfairly targeted as well by a corrupt DOJ and FBI. But we're going to continue this conversation about the importance and the significance, we can't underscore this, the significance of Kash Patel's nomination to serve as FBI director. And I'm going to welcome a very special guest and a personal friend of mine. He has served as a police officer and ended his career in U.S. Customs Narcotic Division, where he investigated drug intervention brought from our borders into the U.S. and into our major cities. He was an acting case agent on several investigations from child pornography to counterterrorism. He also is a Medal of Valor recipient for heroism. Ladies and gentlemen, Constantino Poulakis. Constantino, welcome to the Stone Zone, your maiden voyage on the
That's
Stone
right.
Zone.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Vargas. It's my pleasure. Yes. Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Welcome to the show. I'm sorry Roger isn't here
Happy to
today.
be here.
I'll have to do Constantino, so I hope that's all right.
I'll take it. It's a pleasure and an honor, and I appreciate it, Mark.
Constantino, you've got a law enforcement background, both local and federal. We've been talking about Roger Stone and his latest op-ed, Kash Patel would restore integrity and depoliticize the FBI. Earlier in the show, you missed it, but I played a clip of former corrupt FBI official Andrew McCabe, who was on CNN talking about how dangerous the appointment of Kash Patel is to the FBI. As someone who understands federal law enforcement and local law enforcement, I just wanted to get your 2 cents on the significance of an appointment of an individual and a patriot like Kash Patel.
You know, look, I had the pleasure and the honor of meeting Mr. Patel a couple of times, and I think he's a right pick. You know, big thumbs up to President Trump for that pick. I really do. I think he's the right pick. I think he's going to get confirmed. I don't think he'll have any issues there. However, somebody like Andrew McCabe is grasping at straws, right? He's a disgraced former federal agent. You know, the trust is he's on CNN talking about, you know, President Trump's picks. Well, you know, where was he last year? It's so convenient that he just wants to get on CNN now and discuss this, right? And, you know, as far as Kash goes, I think he's got a road ahead of him that he's going to face some cultural inertia from some longtime staffing at the FBI. And it's going to be up to him to, you know, really foster the unity within the body of it to get some transparency. And I think he's the right pick. Actually, I really think he is. I think he's gonna hit a home run.
You know, you know Roger Stone well. You've been to his
Sure.
home there in
Yeah.
Fort Lauderdale. You obviously former Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich very, very well.
Absolutely.
Rod considers you a very dear friend. It seems it was the FBI that really has perfected the art of the raid, the pre-dawn raid. They over nearly 30 agents raided the home of the sitting Illinois Governor Rod Blagojevich in December of 2008. The FBI raided the home of pre-dawn raid of Roger Stone and his wife Nydia, who is legally deaf, and she woke up in her bed staring at the barrel of a semi-automatic rifle. They put amphibious teams underwater in the intracoastal behind his home in case Roger did thought of a James Bond like is underwater escape from federal agents. There's story after story of how this agency, Constantino, has used its resources, both money and individuals, to target political enemies, particular President Donald Trump and his close associates. Talk to us a little bit about, just what your thoughts are on how this agency, which is supposed to be like cops and go out and go after real criminals, has now been
Right.
using all of its resources and tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars to go after political enemies. Constantino, this can't happen anymore. There's got to be we've got to end this.
Yeah, unfortunately, Mark, it's as simple as this. The FBI does what's called a power play, right? They want to get you at the most vulnerable time, and within their SOP, which is their standard operations policy manuals, they think that a human individual is at their most vulnerability at that time in the morning, right? So it's simply a power play, and depending on who the offender is or who they have the warrant for and who they're trying to take into custody. Do you know that 95% of the time that there's an issued a warrant for someone's arrest, an agent can actually pick up the phone, call these people. They get a target letter, right? They get a target letter from the U.S. Attorney's Office, whoever that governing state is, whether it be the Southern District of New York, the Northern District of Chicago. I've been on those. I've been on those 5 a.m. knocks, and there's been times where it's uncalled for. And these group supervisors within the FBI or federal agencies, it's their call, right? In some of these political cases, it's obviously coming from a much higher chain, right? And I've been on a few of those where it is, nope, we're going in, guns blazing. It's a power play. It's what they like to do, and it's unfortunate because some of the ones that I've been on and experienced, is just uncalled for. I mean, full SRT team, guys are ready to go. 12-man team, one outside, one inside, little girls sleeping in between two parents. It's uncalled for. And you're right, Mark, it does need to stop. And Kash Patel's the right guy to get it to stop because he understands exactly what's going on here.
Constantino, as you've stated, you've met Kash Patel a few times, and for loyal viewers of the Stone Zone, can you tell us a little bit about Kash's personality and what it was like to be with Kash those few times? What was your impression of Kash after being around him a few times?
You would think a guy like Kash would have a persona of walking in and, look at me. He's a very humbled man. He shook everybody's. We were at a Patriot dinner in Nashville, Tennessee, and he went around that crowd and he talked to everybody. He said hello to everybody. He gave a personal touch to everybody, took pictures with people. Very, very common ground. And this is why he's going to succeed at that agency as the director of the FBI, because he gets it. He's not someone that went to this prestigious career. He's had an amazing career. He's very, very well versed. He knows exactly what he's doing within that. I think he's very, very qualified. In fact, he might even be overqualified, which is a good thing, but he just gets it. He understands people, and he was a very humbled person. Just went around. It was on the September 10th, or just before 9/11, and he was there supporting the Charlie Daniels Foundation, and it's just an all around good thing. And I believe he's a very, very good guy.
Constantino, oftentimes, more often than not, I view the glass as half full as opposed to half empty. And I've served in the federal government, in the Secretary of Defense's office, but I'd have to think that you don't necessarily go into an agency like DOD, but specifically the FBI, for example, and say, like, I want to go after political enemies. You think they want to go in there initially as, I want to go after the real bad guys, and make our communities safer, as opposed to, I want to spend all of my time, energy, and taxpayer dollars going after political enemies. Constantino, kind of explain that to us about where that transition happens, perhaps, for people where they go in for, they want to serve our country, and then they end up serving the interests of their political leaders there within the agency.
Yeah, I actually got quite a very interesting perspective on this one. Last year, I went to Harvard University at the Kennedy School of Politics, and I was accompanied somebody that was giving a speech, and I was observing, and I was in a room with 25 of two-year law students from Harvard University, and some had some pretty good questions, and most of them were just. I asked, what are your plans after this? You get Harvard law degree. I mean, you kind of write your own check. What are you thinking? What do you think? Oh, I'm going to DOD. I'm going to the Department of Justice. It's either going to be DOD or Department of Justice, and I'm going to investigate political crimes. And I asked, I said, I didn't even know they were hiring, and just giving them a little bit of a hard time. And he says, no, that's just where I'm going to be, and. Yeah, I just don't think, and this is right before President Trump had the January 6th case dropped on him, right? And the classified documents case dropped on him as well. And this kid was so focused on just going after the opponent. That's all that mattered. And I went to get up. The fellowship was being done by a congressman out there. And I went to get up because the student had left, and I really wanted to talk to him just to kind of break it down to find out what's the anger. Why are you going to commit your life, going to a very prestigious school to go after your political opponents because of beliefs? I don't understand that. You take that amount of effort and you put it into your life. You should be doing good things with that. You should be making a difference. Not having the fuel to go after your political opponents by the ground level of education, right? This is the problem. The problem is that we're being taught this, right? We all don't pick our environments as adolescents, right? As children, we just don't. Some people are born into better situations and some aren't. I'd like to think that somebody that chose Harvard as a place to go, and learn law. They would take it and want to do better. And it's the diversity of anger that's going on, even at the level of college students, is just disturbing, of how they just want to go after. I mean, this is a kid that's not even hired by the Department of Justice yet. They're not even applying. They're not anything. He has aspirations to want to be. Right? And he's at one of the most prestigious schools, and this is what he wants to do. It's concerning. It's extremely concerning.
Constantino, Kash Patel is going to have that. I mean, the forces are going to be working against him within that agency because the corruption has been allowed to exist for so long. And I'd like to think that, being from Chicago, that it really was the Obama administration that perfected the art of the witch hunt. Obama was using Chicago-style politics, bare-knuckle politics, where it's not about policies, but it's about destroying your political enemies, destroying them financially, destroying them reputationally, dragging them through the mud. That is the Chicago way. That's how you're taught and brought up, speaking about upbringing and your learning from your environment. What are some things, given your federal law enforcement background and local law enforcement, and you've been on special task forces as well, what are some things that you'd recommend or that Kash Patel should focus on when he arrives at the FBI? I mean, we already know that he knows exactly what to do, but your thoughts on some things that need to be done right away in order to start cleaning up this agency and restoring trust and integrity back into the FBI.
Yeah, I do believe, like I initially stated, I think he's gonna run into some backlash initially, right, from staff, um, primarily. However, I really think he's just got to focus on getting those guys together and understanding that we're not sitting in a building anymore and looking to try and get the next title in Washington so we can work our way up and potentially I can have Cash's job, because that's what these guys look for. They all want to get up these levels of this, in the federal agencies, it's not like a local, right? Where there's a sergeant, there's a commander, there's a lieutenant, there's levels, right? And their levels, will open up doors to different types of promotions in divisions, right? Some want to be in charge of bank robbery, some want to be in charge of, cyber crimes. Some want to be on that international flights where they're doing black op work, right? Where a lot of people don't know. So he's got his hands full, but his vast experience with understanding the international challenge, right, that the FBI does, because a lot of people think that the FBI is just nationally based. It's not. They do work alongside of the CIA. They do work along all sorts of different type of federal agencies that they don't discuss. And in some previous interviews with Kash, he's discussed of how he was going to declassify certain things, right? So I think if he opens up that door and lets people really, really understand, when I say people, I mean the public, right? Things that you don't need a top security clearance for. And if he can open up that door as far as transparency, some of the things that the FBI classifies is just ridiculous. They do it just because, again, it's a power play and they can, right? They redact things off of they leave things out off of reports. It's ridiculous, right? However, what most people don't understand, again, back to standard operations for the federal agency, anytime that you come into, if you become a target, right, as an offender, right, and you have a federal agency investigating you, every word that you say to them from the initial contact goes in the report, right? Pretrial services sees it. If you're ended up being arrested, prosecuted, every conversation you have, right? Sometimes the agents won't put it in there and sometimes the agents will. Well, why? Why is it, I'll do it now and I won't do it now? Because they have an underlying issue. They really want to get you, they're going to put it in there, right? And if they're, okay, I'm not really sure. This is the problem that they're doing. There's no standard, and Kash has said that he's going to stop doing that. He's going to go in, he's going to allow, some things still need to be classified. I want to be very clear, but I would say the FBI probably classifies 75% of things that only 50% should be classified. The public has a right to know. They do. They have a right to know what's going on to an extent, right? And I just think that under the current way that it's been, I mean, he's not deep state. I mean, this is a mega state, man. It is beyond deep what these guys have done. They've got their little operation. They've run it. It is status quo there, right? And a guy like Kash is going to come in. He's going to change it up for the better. He's going to change it up for the better. It's going to be neater, cleaner, more transparent. And watch and see. You're going to stop seeing these families getting a SWAT team show up at their home at 6:30 in the morning. There's no need for that. There's just not. It's uncalled for, and it's a power play. And I really think that Kash is going to reform the agency from the bottom up. If you've heard what he said before, he's saying that there's no reason why these guys are inside that building. There was over 7,000 agents. I've never confirmed that. However, he said it. He said there's about 7,000 agents in that building, right? The Hoover building in Washington, D.C. Listen, I can tell you those guys are well needed throughout the United States. Well needed. They don't need to be sitting in an office, looking at paperwork, seeing what this one's doing. They don't work a full 8 hours, right? I mean, there's been times where I slept in a car for a month on surveillance. 30 days, you switch a hotel room with a guy, another coworker, you swap out, you get a quick shower, you get back in there. 30 days. We're never in the office. The only time we're in the office, we got to type up a report. You got to get on the street. You got to be out there. You got to enforce laws. You got to get people. The federal agencies are based off of intelligence, right? And intelligence it's not like we have a 911 center, call center is what I mean by that, right? It's information brought to us, right? And what we choose to do with that information is where it goes. And with that said, that takes a motivated agent. You can't sit at home, or you can't sit in the office, surfing the internet. I mean, he's got some work ahead of him, but he's motivated, and he's going to do exactly what he said he was going to do from the beginning. And it's exactly what President Trump campaigned on. He wants to reform these agencies. President Trump is spot on with that. It is so corrupt. It is, anyone from the guys who have the little bit of responsibility in the agency to the top tier. This one's golfing with that one. This one's going here. Don't get me wrong. It's a work environment. There should be team building events. I get that. However, it is just taken advantage of there to the T, because there's no one watching them. So with a guy like Kash in charge, you better look out. There's a new sheriff in town.
Constantino Poulakis, thank you for joining me here on the Stone Zone. Hope to have you back again real soon.
Mark, it was my pleasure and an honor. Thank you. And say hi to Roger for me.
I will. And before we close out the show, breaking news, as you're already aware of, last night, President Joe Biden pardoned his son Hunter. It gave him a full and unconditional pardon. And in fact, he said that his son Hunter was selectively and unfairly prosecuted. Think about that. Selectively and unfairly prosecuted. But let's not forget that it was Biden's Justice Department that is selectively and unfairly prosecuted his chief political rival and his chief political enemy, Donald Trump, who had 37 felony counts in June of 2023 for fake and non-existent crimes for allegedly mishandling classified information. And then just a few months later, he was indicted on additional 4 more felony counts for allegedly trying to overturn the 2020 election. And after President Trump's decisive victory earlier in November, what did Jack Smith do? He filed motions to drop all of these cases and all of these charges. So what does that tell you? That there was nothing there. As fast as he can create these indictments, he can just as quickly erase all of it, but not after spending $30+ million to target a political enemy. When will Jack Smith actually pay back the American people for wasting that money? But what's interesting is that Joe Biden and the White House have spent the last year talking about how Joe Biden will not intervene, that he respects the jury's decision, that he will not pardon his son Hunter. Well, these clips certainly didn't age well. Let's listen to Joe Biden at the G7 summit just this past June.
Regarding the family, I'm extremely proud of my son Hunter. He has overcome an addiction. He's one of the brightest, most decent men I know, and I am satisfied that I'm not going to do anything. I said I'd abide by the jury decision, and I will do that, and I will not pardon him.
President Zelensky, a number of leaders here in Italy.
I will not pardon him. But what did he do just last night, Sunday evening? He pardoned him. Only after his chief political opponent, Donald Trump, and his family have been unfairly targeted and harassed. And Eric Trump put out a beautiful post on X last night, shortly after the announcement, that sums this up. Don't worry about the 112 subpoenas I have received over the past 8 years. 112 subpoenas for Eric Trump alone. Think about all of the money, the tens and tens of millions of dollars that the Trump family has had to spend on legal fees. Let's talk about the hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, that they have lost because of these investigations and the impact that it's had on the Trump family businesses. But again, it's okay for Joe Biden to say that his son Hunter has been unfairly and selectively prosecuted. Therefore, I will pardon him. And he talks about how he wanted to be truthful with Americans and tell them that he was pardoning his Hunter Biden because he's his son and that he wouldn't have been targeted had he not been his son. And so he's acting as a father and as a president, and that is why he has issued him a full pardon. But again, what's Joe Biden going to do about all of the J6 hostages that are currently in prison? Is he going to issue full pardons to them? What this illustrates, ladies and gentlemen, and the blatant and glaring lies spewing out of the mouth of President Joe Biden over the last year and spewing out of the mouth of the White House press secretary, that Joe Biden would not intervene, that he respected the jury's decision, that he would not pardon his son Hunter. What we're seeing is a continuation of lies and deceit by the Democratic Party. Let's not forget that the Democratic Party lied for 4 years during Trump's first term, that Trump was committing crimes, about the Russiagate, that he had coordinated with Russia to influence the 2020 election. What did that turn out to be? A total lie. The impeachment number one, impeachment number two, over the phone call with Ukraine President Zelensky, a perfect phone call. There were no crimes in that phone call. But once again, that was a giant lie. What we've seen since Joe Biden's election in 2020 is that the Democratic Party has lied about Joe Biden's actual health condition. While Joe Biden was napping and forgetting and not running the country, his top political aides, his wife, his vice president, Kamala Harris, were saying, Joe Biden is fit, he's strong, he's commanding the room, he's leading the country. I think it was Kamala Harris that said you should see Joe Biden when the cameras are not on and we're in the White House Situation Room, how sharp Joe is, how he's making decisions that impact our country's national security. What did that turn out to be? A giant lie. How do we know it was a lie? Because they replaced him last minute. They turned an election into a selection and pulled Joe Biden out and put Kamala Harris in. The Democratic Party has lied about making lives easier for the middle class and the working class. The Democratic Party has consistently lied about how they're going to lift up poor communities, poorer urban communities, Black and Latino residents. They've lied about the problems on our southern border, that they've lied about that Kamala Harris was never the border czar, even though she was named the border czar. The Democrats have continued to lie about the atrocities happening on the southern border, the human trafficking, the fact that over 350 children are missing along the southern border, how the drug cartels are holding women and children and young girls hostage. The Democrats have continued to lie that there is a border crisis. The Democrats continue to lie that there is a crime crisis in major cities. The Democrats continue to lie that the illegals, the migrants, have caused a surge in crimes across America, particularly in violent crimes across America. The Democrats have lied, saying that that is not true, when in fact the numbers and the data and the crime statistics prove otherwise. Think about First Chicago, an example. And since Joe Biden has taken office, there's been an 11,000% increase in violent crimes in Chicago of migrants. An 11,000% increase in arrests of Venezuelans since the border has been open. And so they continue to lie. So we shouldn't believe anything that Joe Biden says, and it is why President Trump has had such a commanding victory on November 5th. It's time to right the ship. Well, I thank you for watching the Stone Zone with Roger Stone. I promise you, Roger will be back tomorrow evening. Until then, good night. God bless you, and God bless America.
A man who's gone through hell, but he's kept going, and he's smart, and he's strong, and people love him. Not everybody, but people love him and respect him. Roger Stone. Where's Roger Stone?